Thanks for joining us. So I'm excited to introduce Stephen Partridge, who's here with us today. He's the Vice President of Strategy, Research, and Workforce Innovation at Northern Virginia Community College. And since 2016, he has led efforts to enhance NOVA's role as a key partner in business, government, and nonprofit sectors. And his leadership includes implementing labor market intelligence, launching the Tech Talent Pipeline Initiative, and creating an apprenticeship program with Amazon Web Services. And he previously served as president and CEO of Charlotte Works and held executive roles at Charlotte Chamber of Commerce and the Arizona Department of Commerce. And I also just want to share that I first had the opportunity to hear Stephen speak at a JFF Horizons session in 2024, where he shared powerful insights about his work at NOVA. And his presence here today feels especially meaningful to me because of my personal connection to NOVA. My family's upward mobility in the DC area is deeply tied to Northern Virginia. And some of my earliest memories of higher ed are walking through NOVA's Loudoun campus halls, turning in my mother's computer science assignments. So with that, Stephen, we welcome you.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, Diamond. Appreciate being here, and I'm actually on the Annandale campus here at, we have 6 campuses, so Annandale used to be our biggest, and it just got passed by our Loudoun campus recently. So thank you for having me today. My title probably doesn't tell you really what I do here at the college. It doesn't really say anything about what I do, but basically I run the workforce side of the college, so all the non-credit short-term trainings. I run business engagement, career services, our grants office, our institutional research and labor market teams, along with a few other little pieces around the college that kind of roll into that. So happy to be here. And if we can go to the next slide. So a little about NOVA. A lot of people don't realize when you say Northern Virginia, that is the greater Washington area. Our police were over the other day at the Capitol helping with security. So we're really tied into the community. A short drive from our Alexandria campus, it's probably about 15 minutes across the river and into DC. So we have about 73,000 credit students and about 5,000 non-credit students across our 6 campuses. 5 of our campuses are full service, and our medical education campus focused on nursing and the allied health is about almost 2,000 students. And we're making some big investments. We've got a new building recently from our state legislature, so we'll be doubling the size of our medical education campus, and we'll be adding a new skilled trade center to our Woodbridge campus. So we're really excited about some of these enhancements. Next slide. So talking today about labor market data, just want to set the stage. You know, LMI gets used a lot. When I got here in 2016, we had subscriptions to different services. I think it was Burning Glass we had a subscription to. We had probably 3 others at the time. Apparently no one was using them because I asked if we could get one. They say, oh, we have one. We don't know who has access because we bought it and no one's ever touched it. And so we sort of spun up very quickly, realizing that labor market data, if you're going to figure out where the job market's going, that's a key indicator of where the market's going. And so what we subscribe to is Lightcast is our current one we have a contract with, which was the former Burning Glass. But we also look at state data, we look at national data, we look at housing data, we look at every source of available public data out there to really sort of help us figure out, one, from an enrollment standpoint, what do the trends look like? And what is our enrollment going to look like, 3 years from now? But also, where's the job market heading? We know that all the data that we look at is often, what the financial planners always tell you: past performance does not dictate future performance. So it might be that one sector of the economy is growing a lot over the last 5 years. Does not mean the college should bet big and double down and build a new building without really having some additional conversations with industry. Because some data can be misleading. I know when I came up from Charlotte, I was with the public workforce system there, and we had invested in labor market data. And often there was a weird occurrence that happened in the healthcare industry. It would show us that something was growing gangbuster, and then we'd sit down with the hospitals and they'd tell us, oh no, we're not adding any more of those. So don't train people in that. And what we really found out is, certain industries are very price sensitive to changes in pricing, like in Medicare pricing or other sectors that might have regulation and things like that. So we didn't want to make big bets on things unless we had that ability to talk with business, because the labor market data was really cool, was very interesting, and it really helped us figure out where we should focus on. But it by itself, it doesn't solve everything. You wouldn't really want to, double down and put all your money in the pot, assuming that just because the data told you LPN is the hot new thing, let's go, start a program. You might want to start a program, but how big is it going to be? What's the length of the program? We also look a lot at what our other universities and colleges in the region produce. we have almost 60 colleges and universities in the greater Washington area. So it's a very crowded market. And when you look at some of that data, you might say, well, wow, there's 10,000 new jobs in cybersecurity. Maybe we should triple the size of our program. But if you look at how many jobs are out there combined with how many graduates we have every year, we may be overproducing in some sectors. And we might want to dial certain things back because we do want our students to come out and have ample job opportunity and not be saturated in the market. And that's, I think, something higher ed has gotten a black eye in the past, that we see that students vote with their feet and all of a sudden they're crowding classrooms and you're adding more sections. You're like, this is great. Let's add more and more and more. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, there is no way these students are all going to get jobs in our market. Universities sometimes look at a national job market. They say, well, our students go everywhere. That's great. But for community colleges, really, we're trying to solve a regional problem when it comes to the labor force. So we really do a deep dive into what our local employers need and where they're going. Next slide. So just a little history of LMI. Like I said, we started incubating that program. We now have 3 full-time people that do nothing but LMI here at the college. So 2 of them are our researchers and 1 visualized a lot of that data for use in the community and the college. In 2021, we actually took our IR office. We had a retirement of one of our VPs, and that's how I inherited that group. And they said, Steve, you're already doing LMI. This seems to be data related. Let's just merge the 2. And so we really brought those 2 teams together and formed the Office of Strategic Insights. We also began publishing our regional workforce index, which you'll hear more about later. Again, trying to know more about what businesses actually want. We wanted to get ahead of that rather than always looking in the rearview mirror. In 2022, we launched our Business Engagement Center, which was our first attempt at sort of unifying a front door for business at the college. You can imagine with 6 colleges, 3,400 employees, and lots of people that then just make random phone calls or emails to the college asking how they can engage with us or how they can offer internships. There was no central repository of that information. And so we incubated the Business Engagement Center to sort of be that front door for the college. And then today, our Office of Strategic Insights is really looking at how we automate a lot of our data processes, how do we use AI, and how do we research to support skills-based hiring, and where the industry seems to want to go, but is still lacking some of the legal and framework to really make it happen at scale. Next slide. So when we launched LMI, I will tell you it was very selfishly. I was over just workforce at the time, and I had a lot of people coming to me and saying, I've got a great idea. And these were my colleagues in the college, business leaders. They're saying, you should start a class in X. And you'd look at labor market data and you'd be like, huh, there is no jobs in this, or there's 3 jobs in this, or there are no jobs in this. But without really making that data available and part of our process, there was no way to say no. So I really started LMI initially as like, I need to tell these people no, but I don't want to seem like a jerk. I just got here. I'm telling everyone no to these programs that don't seem workforce focused, but I wanted to share why. And so we really oriented all our initial data research around what is workforce focused and what's not, because we all have limited resources. And we can say yes to everyone, but I think that's really hard often for community colleges and universities to say no to people. And so when you say yes, you end up, again, making it difficult for students to figure out what's important. I call it the cheesecake effect. It's like sort of you go to the Cheesecake Factory and it's a very thick menu. And you're always like, huh, they have Asian cuisine on here. They've got Italian, they've got American. It's like, is it all good? And the waiter's like, it's all great. It's like, no, it's not. You go to the really fancy restaurants, it's a very small menu. And it's like, these were the fresh things today. So we wanted to sort of pare down to like, there's no wrong door, but if we're going to put a program that there's only 10 jobs in Northern Virginia, what are the odds of those students every year getting all 10 of those jobs? So we really wanted to focus on high demand programs. So if we have a program with 100 students, hopefully there'll be 1,000 job openings or more per year. It's like the 10-to-1 rule. So we really tried to make that our sort of North Star. We also wanted to make sure we could provide better career navigation advising. Before I took over career advising and career services, there was no centralization of that. Every campus did it completely different. So if you were a student going to certain campuses, you had a volunteer person that's sort of one of our advisors that said, I like career, I'll just volunteer to help out with that stuff. And they would pull data and information about job markets off the internet. And unless you sort of set that this is the data that we want to sort of focus on, there's a lot of misinformation on the internet. Surprise, surprise. And even when you get correct information, the size and scope of that isn't always clear. We have a lot of students come in and say, I want to do this when I graduate Nova, and I want to live at Northern Virginia area. But we have to explain to them there are no jobs. Those are maybe customer facing IT roles, and those are in other markets than here. Or those are jobs in Silicon Valley. We don't really have those type of jobs here. We got lots of government jobs, cybersecurity jobs, but they're very different skill sets and different things that you need to learn to get into those fields. And so we want to be very clear that there's no wrong door, and we'll make it clear what jobs are here. And it also is an equity issue when you think about it. A lot of our students come in, they think they know what they want. They kind of push their way through or sort of steered in certain directions based on what is expressed interest. But again, I don't know what your kids talk at the dinner table about, but most families talk about what they know. And if they're not in IT jobs or they're not in certain types of fields, they're probably not having those dinner table conversations. So students come in not even realizing there's a whole world that they don't know about that are in demand and give them great wage opportunities here at home. So we really want to open the opportunities for students more by sharing that more when students first get here. We've also gone deeper into the pipeline. We share all of our career ladders and career navigation information with our K-12 partners because we really want them thinking about this earlier. I always say that the worst place to do career exploration is college. I mean, it's what I did because college was a lot cheaper. Because I remember one time taking a check down to pay for college one semester. It's like, wow, that's not that bad. But now that I've got 3 kids and 2 are in college, it's gotten much worse. So it's not a place that I want them hanging out just exploring life. I want them to kind of go through, but you have to then make sure they're ready for success and know what opportunities they want to go into. And I know there's no straight line to any job. I got a degree in interdisciplinary studies. My family still doesn't know what that is. And how I got into workforce development and higher ed was not a straight path. So there's a lot of wiggle room there. But unfortunately, the economics have changed a lot in higher ed. It's very expensive. You often leave with debt. You have to repay that debt, and the cost of living's gone up so high in certain areas like Northern Virginia that if we don't put people on the right path, we're setting them up for failure long term. So we really try to do a lot more advising earlier, even down into the middle school if we can, because we understand that you're never going to make a decision about your job then, but your interests start to develop. We also use the LMI information to identify new advisory boards. We found that many of our program advisory board members were in industry, but not the industry that we're ever hiring our students. They might have been marquee names. Oh, we have someone from Microsoft on our IT advisory board, which is great. It sounds good, but if you look at their job posting, they never hire anyone in Northern Virginia below a master's level because it's research and it's government affairs. So the real question is we want to make sure that the advisory board members can give us actual feedback on making sure our students are prepared and those programs prepare our students for the jobs that actually exist. So we went through about a year-long process of redesigning all our advisory boards, and we use that labor market data as the initial first pass to see which companies we should focus on and put on our advisory boards. We use it for our outreach strategy. We find a lot too. The labor market data is so critical to getting grants nowadays. We've tripled the number of grants we've gotten in the last 5 years by focusing on making sure our labor market data aligns with the grants we're putting forward. And community partnerships. I'll share more about that later, but we're finding a lot of community partners love this data. We've got great partnerships with the Capital Area Food Bank, with our housing authorities that are really trying to advise residents and folks that are taking advantage of these services where they should go into. It's a great introduction to Nova and to the resources we have to get them, whether it's Nova or elsewhere, to get them back in the system, to get them into sustainable wage jobs. Next slide. So I mentioned a little about our Employment Engagement Center. When we launched this, it was more of a concept. You know, we wanted to get a website out there. We wanted to educate the college community that if you get a call from a business, to direct them here. We had staff ready to answer their questions. We're in the process of building out our first CRM so that we can start to track this, because when our president goes to meetings, I always get the email afterwards or during the meeting like, hey, I'm at a luncheon. I'm sitting next to so-and-so. Do we have any relationship with them? Are they doing anything with the college? And I have to quickly run around to like 5 departments and find that answer out. Soon she will have a tool that on her phone that she can click in the person's name and find out if their organization is engaged in any way. If they donated money to our foundation, are they serving on advisory boards? Do they offer internships, post jobs? So we really want to make sure that, one, we don't walk into situations not realize how we already have partners just because you're talking to a different person in the company, but we really want to start to track and see how we're engaging with our community. We also launched our guaranteed interview program. Again, based on labor market data, we launched this initially with our Fast Forward funded, which is a state financial aid programs for short-term training programs that are credential-based. But basically, for our non-credit programs, it says to a student coming in, you're guaranteed an interview if you successfully get the credential out of this program. And often we always try to have 5 to 8 employers for every program that will guarantee, I mean, they're very happy to hire these people because they're in demand positions. So we've launched that with our non-credit, and we're starting to roll that into our credit programs because there is such demand in the skilled trades, healthcare, and others. So the industry has been received this very well. It's a great way to tie us more directly to industry because it kind of gives those companies that sign on a first look at that talent. We get in them early before they're ever done with the program. And again, at the end of the program, I've got some links that will take you to all these programs to learn more information, but I can also send you information offline or connect you to people who run these programs. So it's been a very big game changer. We've gotten some great national press, and we're going to be expanding that over the next year or two. And then just traditional career services like posting jobs, internships. But again, we're trying to do this earlier in the process. We don't want students showing up in career services and talking to us, a month before they get their diploma. We really want to have the conversation up front before they show up that first semester here to say, really, what do you want to do? What do you want to be in? Parking yourself in general studies, which is sort of I call it the death program, because you're not sure what you want to do. So you park yourself there, but while you're exploring, time is ticking. And now you're a year in, you're a year and a half in, and now you have a degree in general studies, which doesn't really, unless you transfer into sort of a general studies program in a 4-year, you sort of shut a lot of doors at that point. And if you don't transfer, you don't have a lot of marketable skills directly. It's a lot of the general ed stuff that you're going to leave Nova with, but not really be a game changer in the marketplace. Next slide. So the workforce index was another one of these things that we wanted to talk proactively with businesses. So about 4 years ago, we launched the very first workforce index. At the height of the pandemic, we were like, hey, what's changing about the job market? Because everyone's staying home. They're reluctant to go back. And so a lot of our initial questions, besides looking forward of asking employers what your job prospects are over the next year, do you feeling optimistic? Are you going to be hiring more or less the same in the coming year? Was around telework. And so were you allowing people to telework? How far out were you allowing them? Because in our area, so many of these jobs require, a lot of federal contracts will actually say you have to have these employees within a certain radius of DC. And so we really focused on that for the first few years. And we have about 250 to 300 employers that respond every year. And so we break it down by sector. So you'll see feedback on the IT sector and the healthcare sector. But this year we pivoted, and we're going to release the brand new index in 2 weeks on AI and asking employers what they are doing in the AI space. What are their expectations around employees coming into the market on having AI skills? Because we're in talking to businesses, there's a want to do more with AI, but they're a little tepid. They're not sure to make the big investment and what they expect. But employees are freaking out. They're calling us and saying, what classes do you have? I feel like I need something so I don't lose my job. So there's definitely a mismatch, and people are panicking faster than I think businesses are worried about it. But about a third of our businesses, as a little preview, did tell us that they're starting to look at job postings and starting to work some language into job postings around understanding of AI skills and technologies out there. Doesn't mean they want you to write it, because I don't think very few people know how to write design AI, but how do you use it in your job? How do you make your work more efficient? And we've been playing around with this in the college in several areas, and it's a game changer for some areas of the college that maybe do a lot of writing, and we are using smart brevity in our communications team, and you will take an article and it will create a little very short article that's easy digestibility for the college as a whole that can do what, I used to spend an hour whittling down a big article to take the highlights out so the faculty and staff could understand it. And so we're really using some of these tools to push this technology out. But that yearly check-in with business has really helped us sort of double down on what we think we want to invest in, see if we're on the right path for certain sectors of the economy. And it's also a great way to get press. By being engaged with the business community, every year we release this at an event with business leaders, and we do this in partnership with the chamber. So we really kind of make a big deal about it. We often get some press, and then we use that throughout the year as a talking point with industry. Next question. Next slide. Next question. I mentioned Fast Forward earlier. This is a great program that basically the legislature passed about 9 years ago. It started off with about a $14 million investment per year. And it's for community colleges. So there's 23 colleges in Virginia. We're all part of a system to offer financial aid for non-credit classes, but they have to be in high demand fields. They have to offer a industry recognized credential at the end, and it has to be third party validated. It can't just be Nova made something up and Nova gave you a little final exam and it's the Nova certificate in IT. It'll be the CompTIA products or a license like a certified nursing assistant or skilled trades type of credentials. And we started off the first year, we had like 300 people take advantage of it. And now we're approaching 1,500 students per year at just Nova alone. And the program has grown to approaching 25 million a year from the legislature. So it's got bipartisan support. It's very popular. We do more training than the WIOA system in Virginia when you look at the actual number of students served and the credentials awarded. So it is definitely a game changer, I think, for the community college system, because during the pandemic is really when we saw that growth. We were already kind of having a lot of penetration of the working adults starting to come back. But during the pandemic, when certain jobs just disappeared in hospitality and others, you saw people switching into healthcare, switching into skilled trades. And it was usually 25 to 40. The data shows that many of these students had some interaction with higher ed in the previous 5 to 10 years, but hadn't stepped foot on a college campus and never completed any sort of degree. So these were sort of the ideal student who we were hoping this would help. And on average, our students here in Northern Virginia saw between a 75 to 125% increase in wages for a program that was usually 6 to 8 weeks. So these were not always livable wages as a first step. After an 8-week course, I'd love that you could make 80,000. But we tried to make many of these stackable, that you go into a certain program like CNA, and then maybe the next step is we built a workforce program for CNAs that gives you a pathway to the LPN. And we're launching an LPN to RN program next year. So there's ways we've started to give a ladder to all these jobs that often were dead-end jobs with healthcare and others to show them there is a stackability if you stick with us. So that's been a game changer for us here at Nova. It's really gotten us some national attention as a state for investing in the non-credit. And our legislature is very happy because they keep adding money to it. So we're excited to keep expanding the number of programs. For Nova, it's doubling down on skilled trades. We were mostly a transfer institution for many years. We had a few small trade programs, but not a lot. And with the growth of data centers and a lot of electrical, I mean, now that everyone's driving electric cars, we need more electricians just for the install at home or the public charging station. So we're adding a lot of new programs over the next few years here at Nova. Next slide, please. Another thing that we've really been lacking, and I think you'll probably all agree, is the work-based learning opportunities. So Virginia decided as a state to invest money in what they call the Virginia Talent and Opportunity Partnership. And it's a statewide program, and then there's grants for each region. There's 7 regions across Virginia. They call them the Go Virginia regions. They're sort of economic development regions. And for our region, Nova is the grant holder. So we work with other institutions where our co-lead on that is Marymount University, but we work with all the 4-year institutions in our region. And basically it's to grow the number of internships and to then obviously offer additional services, both for businesses trying to recruit them into the program, but also for students to make them more work ready. So there are actual dollars available to pay interns. So you have to be a small to medium-sized business. We've got a partner in iQuasar to really help basically hire. It was like a staffing firm, hire the interns. So if you're a smaller employer, you didn't want to bring them onto your payroll and deal with all that, we've got a firm that won a state contract to be able to offer that. The money long-term under the law is allowable for high school. So most of the focus for the first few years is on the higher ed side, but we do want to move into K-12 to offer this to seniors. And on the next slide, I think you'll hear a little more about another program that we're doing that really is trying to get into the high school to offer internships, more virtual internships, but a way to really start to get students earlier in the pipeline, really understanding what work is. So next slide. Oh, that's not the slide, but I'll come back to it. So another one, I mentioned data centers. Virginia is one of the largest concentration of data centers anywhere in the US. Actually, we have the more data centers than the next 5 markets below us combined. I don't know why. We've talked about it. Is it because we had a lot of power here, or it's just policy? It's not totally clear, but they're all here. And Amazon Web Services plans to invest another 35 billion over the next 15 years in Virginia growing data centers. And this slide we produced about a year and a half ago. This was before the big AI push. Now you're talking AI data centers. There was an announcement yesterday with Oracle and other companies coming together to push AI data centers. And so I think you're going to see across the whole US of this need for data center operation technicians. And so we actually have just doubled the size of our program. We're having a ribbon cutting in a few weeks for our new data center facility where we basically have a state-of-the-art data center that we've built, and we designed it with politicians in mind. There's a lot of glass. You can take students and politicians to see what they're paying for, to show them how we're actually giving people jobs. And most of our students who leave the program now make $60,000 to $80,000. And we recently got highlighted in the Wall Street Journal for one of their pushing. I don't like the way they call it. The headline is "No degree needed." But we all know upskilling is needed. We know that higher ed plays a role in either transitioning people in and out of jobs, whether they have a degree or not. And so these are the type of jobs of the future that in a year or less, many of our students that often don't complete the full degree, they get the career study certificate and they go to work in our local data centers. So if you're interested more, I can connect you to Chad Knights, who's our VP that runs that program along with all our IT programs. But that has been a huge part of our growth strategy. And again, it was working with businesses. AWS is in our backyard. Their headquarters is here. Amazon's second headquarters is down the street, but we talk with them monthly. We are the only community college in the country to actually have an MOU with AWS that we are their test bed for a lot of their technologies and their new programs. And we've worked very closely with the Data Center Coalition. We work with them all the time to develop internships, but they actually co-created that program with us. They lent us the equipment to start it, the talent, the people to sit down to help us write the curriculum. So it really, the data points you in that direction, but the data will never tell you how to get there. You got to sit down with industry and have that conversation. And we've been very fortunate that the demand's been there, that they've been very desperate to want to sit down and spend the time with us on this. It wasn't like we had to pull teeth. Next slide. One interesting thing, most of our funding for our college comes from the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we're a state agency of the Commonwealth. We don't get a lot of local money. And I know funding across the country is different. Some states, it's a lot of local money, not much state money. So about half of our funding is tuition, half of it's state funding. We get a very little amount of money from the jurisdictions because of a quirky law that used to say they had to put some money in for new construction or renovations. But when that law went away, the localities sort of said, so if we don't have to have this money go to construction, what can we have it go towards? And we had a conversation with them about basically creating programs to help train their residents. And so we now have 3 jurisdictions that use their very small general support. Like for Manassas, it's now up to 90,000 as of this year. In local dollars they contribute to the college. This basically, we've sat down with them and created a list of here, what matches your city needs and what do you hope your residents get, and they will pay from a list of programs. And so residents call us up, they say, I live in Manassas, we verify that. They say, I'd like to take an IT course or health, dental, business class, and then they will pay the first third of how that fast forward funding is done. Fast forward basically says the student pays a third. When the student completes a class, the second third is paid by the Commonwealth, and when the student passes the certification exam, they get the final third. We get the final third. So the student's basically paying only 30% of the cost. Now Manassas will pay that first third. So it's completely free for their residents, which is a game changer if you're thinking about the war on talent. And we know if you look at all the national trends that we're going to have skill shortages for quite a while, that the industry is going to be outstripping the need for high skilled talent. So it puts people in a really good position, but it puts cities in the talent game all of a sudden. It's like, I want my residents to make more money. I want them to have better paying jobs. So we're now gonna, as a city or county, we're gonna put in money to help you educate yourself or your kids. And so I think you're going to see a lot more jurisdictions, because again, when I first got into workforce years ago, it was like the federal government with WIA at the time, and they were putting money in, and not a ton of money, but states were really hard pressed to put that much in. Now states are outstripping what WIA puts in, and now you're starting to see local jurisdictions put money in the game, because it is so important to have the skills aligned with the job market, because that drives economic growth. So we're really excited about this one, and we've got another one just launched and a third one that's in the pipeline. So we're excited to see where this goes. Next slide. Okay, so Talent Ready 2.0. The 2.0 is because this is the second round of grants. JP Morgan Chase focused on DC during the pandemic and gave $6 million to 6 jurisdictions across the greater Washington area. So Nova received $1 million to partner with our largest school district, Fairfax Public Schools. And the second round will expand the number of districts. But basically, the first one was focused just on IT jobs and getting more students into IT pathways. This one's really about work-based learning and really getting high school students to sort of, once you've tried out a job, as we know that, maybe 30, 40 years ago, it was maybe 2/3 of high school seniors graduated having some summer work experience or working part-time. Pre-pandemic, and the pandemic actually helped that number come back a little, but pre-pandemic it was only about 40% of high school students. So, and I know as a parent, there's lots of extracurricular activities and different things you do, but work wasn't always the top priority. It was about getting them in clubs or starting this club or doing that. But that really did help them figure out what work is like, but also figure out maybe I don't like doing this, and maybe I don't want to do that after I graduate college. And so you have a lot more college kids in the last decade coming into college, picking a degree track, never having worked, and then getting in the workforce and saying, I hate this. And so it didn't help that we don't give them that exposure. So it is difficult, especially in DC, to get a lot of internships. Since you have 60 colleges and universities, that tends to be the priority. But you also work in an area that there's a lot of people on buildings that try to keep you out of buildings. They don't want people in. They don't want, unless you have a security clearance, you don't go in these buildings. So there's a fewer number of internships than you might find in other markets. So we knew if you couldn't have high school students going in all these buildings, could we create virtual opportunities and project-based internships for students? So we are the largest provider of dual enrollment. We have almost 30,000 students, high school students, that are doing college level dual enrollment at Nova. Not all of them end up here. I'd love to say they do, but they often go on somewhere, but they're getting that free college credits. And we're now going to target those students as the first round to say, hey, you're already in dual enrollment. You've completed your first successful class. We're going to offer a work-based learning opportunity for you going forward. And again, we're going to focus on key industries in our area, like IT, healthcare, but it's going to give them that first taste. And the goal would be, let's get them then into a career pathway at Nova or another university. Well, then they can get the in-person opportunity down the road. But it's we're just launching that now. We're trying to make it sustainable by building it as part of a class that you take so that cost to set this program up is then sustainable after the grant ends. So we're excited about where this goes and happy to share more as we learn through that program. Next slide. And finally, our community partners. As I mentioned earlier, we work with a lot of groups, not only trade associations and industry leaders and companies, but nonprofits. I serve on the EDA board for the Fairfax County, so we work with industry, trying to lure companies here. And again, their biggest question is always, where are my employees going to come from? Because everyone knows it's a tight labor market. So companies, organizations, colleges that can figure out a partnership to say, well, we don't have people here now, and you don't necessarily have to overpay and hire people away from all your competitors. How do you have a strategy to grow your own? And I first tested this in Charlotte. We had a high school that was focused on manufacturing, Olympic High School. And we would try to lure German firms from Germany to open manufacturing base in the greater Charlotte area. And we didn't have machinists just sitting around doing anything. We would tell them, listen, it's going to take you 2 years to build your facility. We can take a junior or senior at Olympic High School, come out, they'll be through the Central Piedmont Community College's mechatronics program. By the time you're done, we can tweak their curriculum so they're ready to work for you day one when that facility opens. That sort of pipeline, looking at your entire pipeline and be able to have that conversation with business is critical for if you're trying to win economic development opportunities and grow business long term. Because either businesses have to get in your business or you work with business to show how you can help them. And you don't want Amazon deciding they want to take on higher ed and run their own universities anytime soon, or we'll all be out of business. So we try to partner with these companies to show how we can add value to them. We work with statewide partners. Again, we mentioned we work with all 12 or all 9 of our K-12 partners, and the Food Bank and Housing Authority. We're piloting training in the Housing Authority facilities so that using our fast forward dollars where they'll pay the first third and their residents can get all sorts of programs that then a pathway to jobs that will eventually get them out of public assistance housing and into their own houses. So it's really a pipeline that we're trying to free up space in these facilities, get people off food bank assistance, but it all comes down to understanding where the jobs are and making sure your programs actually lead to those jobs. And I think that's the thing we have to look at ourselves. And Nova's not perfect. We've built this out, but we still have some legacy programs that are like, we probably need to sunset that one soon because the job market softened there, and I'm not sure all the students are getting jobs. But it's a great way to have that labor market data there and also have the IR data so I can also compare both sides. Here are the jobs. This really needs to go away because I'm looking at both sides of the equation. So I think that's the last slide. Think. Oh, no. I guess I had to do a self-promotion. We did get recognized in a recent Harvard book that, along with a few other community colleges, again, focused on the hidden job engines. We've done a few presentations on this, but as you can see, sort of the themes of that book, one, it starts at the top. I couldn't do anything without a great board and a great president who says, yeah, go ahead and do that. And she lets me have a lot of freedom to kind of do these partnerships and try out new things. But again, focused on the long-term mission, connecting our students to economic opportunities. And the piece of paper might have guaranteed that opportunity in the past, but that's not the case anymore. If we think just getting our students a piece of paper, whether it's a liberal arts degree or a certificate, and thinking they're going to make a living wage going forward, that is not a guarantee. That, like it maybe once was in the 80s, early 90s, where they were so desperate for college degrees that they sort of were snatching everyone up no matter what your degree was in. It is not as easy as that anymore. And there's a lot more players in the market, and there's a lot of competition there, and it doesn't mean all are equal. So I think we owe it to our students to make sure what we offer is that sort of curated list of programs that we know and can stand behind that lead to these economic opportunities. So, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that wasn't the last slide. So we'll see. Oh, and there are the resources here. If you have any questions about labor market, you can reach out to me, but Marissa Hayes leads our labor market team. We also have a business engagement team and career services. That's Dana Fallon. She's the director of that group, and it does the VTOP internships, business engagement center, guaranteed interview, and then our nonprofit, non-credit fast forward programs, and all our community partners like Grow Manassas. I didn't mention Google Stars, but that's a great program that we partner with Google to basically over 6 weeks, we expose about a dozen or two students to the construction trades. They go out to data centers because they're now partnering because they want more data centers, but the construction trades are so lean here that they're saying if we don't get more students into the field, we're never going to be able to keep pace with growth. And so they pay us to put on these programs, and they are all guaranteed a job 6 weeks when they're done with any of their contractors on their job sites. And they get these amazing swag bags that I get to help give away that, I mean, the first one was a t-shirt. Now we're up to like bags that are probably worth about $10,000 worth of tools and equipment when they're done with the program. I'm waiting when they get the truck. When they get to the point where everyone gets a car at the end, this program's going to be a game changer. But it's another way that we're working with industry to solve a pipeline issue, really. It's not even that we're providing as much training because it's really an awareness issue. But I think higher ed's going to have to be more in that game as well about how do we get more people interested in these fields if our communities are going to survive. And that is Kayla Lozada at our workforce division. So with that, I guess I'll let the team transition to any questions.